get Alan to rejoin us on the stage, and also David Wills, who is Managing Partner of Private Clients from PwC. We're going to have a bit of a panel discussion, but I'm also going to throw to the audience for questions. So get them ready. We'll just have a few minutes to do that. So we'll kick off, and then I'll throw to the audience. So we'll give Alan and Tom a bit of a rest and kick off with David. And David, just tell us a bit about, both our previous speakers mentioned having losers and winners as part of the budget from an individual taxpayer perspective. So just tell us a little bit about that, and how do you think that's all going to play out?
Yeah, Cindy, look, I think, both of the gentlemen have nailed it. I guess the reality is Joe Hocking promised a pretty boring budget and he delivered. So when it comes to headlines, it's pretty hard to draw them out. The area I think that is of particular interest to individuals and those that have businesses as well is the tax rate introductions and the changes in the various tax rates that Tom alluded to. You've got the marginal tax rate increasing to 49% from 1 July for those above 180. You've then got FBT changing to 49% from 1 April 15. And then you've got company tax rates coming down to 28.5%. So the whole issue around family businesses, private businesses will be about capital management, and it'll be around ensuring that they don't get themselves into a dirty space around that area. The issue of franking credits actually wasn't addressed in the budget, and that will be a very interesting element as to what happens to accumulated franking credits going forward. But the bottom line, I think, for individuals is some pain. You compound that with the excise, and it's not a pretty space. What we were very pleased to see was that there was no tinkering at this stage with superannuation. In fact, some slight relief for management of self-managed super, and that was, I think, a very welcome element. But overall, I think individuals at the top end obviously were feeling the pain in the short term, and they'll want to think about how they manage their tax arbitrage.
And Tom mentioned, again, the divide between the corporate tax rate and individual tax rate and tax planning going forward. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that and what you think might happen there?
Yeah, look, I think in that space you're seeing a bunch of changes with company taxes. One of the things that didn't get a lot of highlighted mention was the reduction in the research and development tax offset benefit, which is actually going to come in 12 months earlier than the tax rate reduction. So the timing's a little earlier, and that has always been, we've seen as a strong incentive for companies having a crack. But I think what we've seen overall is from this budget, not taking on the tougher issues. Whilst I think it's fair to say we agree that we might not be in crisis at the moment, our PwC projections make it very clear that over the next decade and beyond, we have some absolute compelling need for some structural change in our system. We can't rely on our current taxes as on an income basis. We've got to put everything back on the table. There's some good momentum happening, I think, around some of those areas of review. You've seen the family business review in the joint parliamentary sitting from the Senate. The introduction, I think, of the family business and small business ombudsman is welcome, albeit only with $8 million of funds allocated to that. That's designed to act as a virtual concierge for small businesses to navigate their way around some of the red tape that government has introduced. We'd be welcome to see if the bureaucrats can help us deal with the bureaucrats. That'll be very welcome.
Now, Tom, you obviously concluded that we didn't go far enough. So what do you think this budget will do for business confidence? What more could have been done at this point in time?
Oh, look, I think businesses would be quite confident after this because, frankly, the budget didn't do anything to most businesses. Notwithstanding the issues about franking credits that we don't quite know how that'll play out, for business, things are pretty good. If you're a rent-seeking business, well, arguably you shouldn't be in business anyway, so that's probably coming to an end. But I guess what we didn't see was there was nothing on industrial relations. Now, I'd thought there might be something on work choices, but with a different name, so we didn't see that. I understand why, but I had thought that this government might do something about it. We've seen the tax issue of widening the gap between the corporate and the personal tax rates. I do think is a real problem in Australia. I reckon we would probably have the widest gap in the world between our top marginal personal rate and our corporate rate. If you go to New Zealand, just across the ditch, you know, the top marginal rate I think is only 35% and the corporate rate is 31 or 32. So all the time and effort that people spend here to try and incorporate aspects of what they do really doesn't exist over there, or certainly not to the same extent. But look, I just think as far as business goes, as steady as she goes, you know, I don't think they would look at anything in this budget and say, oh, we went to bed last night thinking one thing and we've woken up this morning, or as Alan's case, not gone to bed, thinking something different. You know, it's a good budget from a business perspective only because it doesn't introduce any changes, and businesses by and large don't like changes, at least from the government.
Okay. And there was a mention last night of a $10,000 payment to employers who are actually going to hire individuals over the age of 50 who've been unemployed. What's the panel's view on that? And is that going to make a difference? And what's driving that?
Well, what I think is driving it is the idea that they want to make people work longer and therefore try and incentivise people. I think the way it's structured is basically you get $2,000 up front. I didn't actually read the fine detail, but the leak was you get $2,000 up front, and then if you basically keep them on for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, keep them for 2 years, it gets more. Yeah, I'm sympathetic to the idea that as you get older, it's harder to get a job, and so therefore that. But it does make it more difficult. You know, if you're 48 or 45, or if you're young, I think it's sort of shuffling the pack but not really doing a lot. I'm sympathetic to the idea of trying to make people work longer. But whether it'll work or not, I'm much more sceptical.